welcome to this week's episode of Get Booked with Jennifer and Mary. I'm Mary.
I'm Jennifer.
So, what are we talking about today, Jennifer?
We're talking about thrillers, and I've got one of my favoriteest authors, Jennifer Lynn Burns.
What would you classify as a thriller, first off?
Oh. Okay, so thrillers are quick page-turners, books that you almost read in one sitting because you can't put it down. Lots of action, lots of danger, people almost dying.
A dramatic theme song in the back going da-da-da-da-da.
Explosions. Slow motion people walking away from explosions that they don't look at in the background.
Yes. Thrillers.
You know, all the fun stuff. Alright, so Jennifer Lynn Burns is my first pick. This is a series called The Naturals. I think there's 4 books in it. I wish there were more. She actually has a new book that's dropping next week, which is called Inheritance Games, which has secret passages and is a thriller.
Yes.
And it's amazing. Anyways, this book is about a group of kids. They're like 17, 18. And it features this girl named Cassie who can read people really well. And the FBI use them to help profile serial killers. Cold cases, though, so it's not active cases. But, of course, things happen, and sometimes they're a little bit more active than a little bit active and not as cold as they thought they were going to be. And there's some secrets with Cassie's mom, and everybody in the group kind of has some secrets. So it's a really fun read. It was about $4.
Cool. So my first book is Murder Trending by Gretchen McNeil. I believe this came out last year. Probably? Yeah. So this one's pretty cool. It's a little bit in the future. There is an app called the Postman app, and people die on it. Like, there's a murder, Alcatraz Island type thing, and people can tune into this app and watch executions. But our 17-year-old protagonist, Dee, wakes up, and she's in a prison cell, and she's like, how did I get here? I didn't do anything wrong. What is happening here? Can Dee escape? And she also creates, like, a prison gang breakfast club of other teens that are also wrongfully accused of, like, yeah, we gotta get out of here. This is not a cool thing. So this is a great thriller. It also kind of reminds me of a manga called Doubt that we have that's similar. The whole, like, there's an app, and you wake up, and you're in a place, and there's someone trying to kill you. So, it's a little bit of a theme. So yes, that's my first pick. What do you got?
Alright, I've got Ellie Carter's Not If I Save You First.
I love this book.
So good.
So good. I wish they would make this into a Netflix movie.
Oh, you're awesome. So, Maddie is living in Alaska with her dad. And it's not like Alaska in a town. It's like the middle of nowhere Alaska. And she's been living there for a couple of years. She actually has a bedazzled hatchet, which is really fun.
Although it throws off the throwing.
It does. There is, so she kind of has a little secret. Her dad used to work for the president. She used to be really good friends with the president's son until something happened, and you don't quite know exactly what it is. And so fast forward, they're in Alaska. The president's son got himself in a little bit of trouble, and he comes to stay with them. And something happens, I can't remember what it is, but the dad has to go off and do something, and so Maddie and the president's son are, who we think is Logan, are alone in the cabin, and of course, he has assassins coming after him, and so they have to run, and it's a whole thing living in the wilds and trying to figure out, are the bears going to kill us, or the assassins going to kill us, who's going to kill us first. It's great.
It is a page turner. So my next book is Peterfreund's The Perfect Candidate. Have you read this one?
I have not.
Yeah, so, is it Cameron Carter? Yeah, Cameron Carter lands this really awesome internship in D.C., and he's psyched for it. And he's the new guy in town, right? And nobody knows Cameron Carter. He's not connected to any type of, like, wealthy family or, like, a political dynasty or anything. And then suddenly this girl gets murdered, and he ends up in the wrong place at the wrong time. He didn't do it. It's getting pinned on him, and he's like, oh, no. And so it's kind of like, can he uncover the big, huge, controversial cover-up that's going on and clear his name? And, like, the FBI's out to get him, and it's just, yeah. So, political thriller.
Sounds good.
Yep.
My next one is The Devil's Breath, and I've read this one so long ago, but I remember loving it. I'm just going to read the little tagline here. When 15-year-old Max Gordon's environmentalist adventure father goes missing, While working in Africa, Max becomes a target of a would-be assassin at his school in England and decides he must follow his father and find him before they are both killed. So the assassin does come to England. Max obviously escapes. He goes to Africa where he almost dies like 8 million times. But he finds a friend and they try to find his father. It's really good. There is a sequel. There might be a third book, but I'm not remembering. But really fun.
Cool. My next book is White Rabbit by Caleb Roehrig. This one is, we know I love a horror book, so this is kind of like a horror thriller. Caleb is having, or not Caleb, excuse me, that's the author. Rufus is having the worst night of his life. He's not a popular kid at all. His ex-boyfriend keeps texting him, and he's like, I don't want to get with you. And then his sister texts him. And as the story unfolds, you find out that it's his half-sister. He actually is the illegitimate son of a very powerful lawyer in town who will not claim him. And so there's a lot of, like, school politics around that with, like, the pecking order of the it crowd or whatnot. So he and the boyfriend, or she's an ex-boyfriend, go to pick up the sister who's out in the middle of the woods at this cabin. And it's also, this takes place in Vermont outside of Burlington. And inside Burlington.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think I forgot to tell you that. So since you did the whole Vermont thing with being from there. That was, yeah. Anyway, I cannot talk today. So yeah, so they go to pick up his half-sister, and it turns out, like, her boyfriend's dead, and she has no memory of what just happened. And there was a huge party with all the popular kids, and so the whole night, and this is definitely a page turner, it takes place in one night of, like, trying to figure out who killed the boyfriend and to clear his half-sister's name. And also, more people die. Is Rufus and Sebastian, his ex-boyfriend, who just keeps tagging along. Like, it is the worst night of his life. He's like, why is this happening to me? I should have just gone home and turned off my phone, and yet this is all happening. So this is really good if you want, like, a quick pace, like, who did it, kind of, like, teen slasher. I really love this book.
My next pick is an April Henry Girl in the White Van. April Henry has written a bunch of thrillers. Sometimes they're a little bit more forensic, sometimes they're serial killer type. This is probably the third or fourth that I've read, and I've really enjoyed all of them. So this one, Girl in the White Van, is a kidnapping. This girl is kidnapped outside her kung fu course. Like, the class has ended, and she is not really wanting to go home. For other reasons. She gets kidnapped, put in this white van, and taken to this trailer where she finds that she's actually the replacement for this other girl. Yeah, there's some not great scenes. There's a dog, and so there's like some
A little bit gore.
Yeah, a little bit of gore scenes.
Okay.
But she and this other girl realize that it's only a matter of time before the kidnapper comes back, and they need to escape ASAP, or they're going to die together.
I want to read that now.
It's really good.
Cool. So my next book is Paul Griffin's Skyjacked. I really like this book. It has different perspectives for a lot of the chapters too, which is cool. Because when it first starts, you're like, what is going on? So there is a perspective of one girl who's doing her internship at the, I can't remember, it's like the place that monitors all of the air traffic control stuff in the U.S. to make sure that, like, planes aren't off their route, so that way they won't cause accidents with other planes or, you know, land in communities in crash land kind of thing. I cannot talk today. So that's one perspective, and the other perspective are the kids that are actually on this plane. And it's a weird group of kids. Like, there's the one kid, and I think it's the reason why the mix of kids is so that, like, you're suspicious of every single character, because they end up getting skyjacked on the way. And so the different perspectives you have, like, there's, like, you know, the jock who doesn't care about stuff, but, like, maybe he does care about stuff, but he just doesn't want to talk about things that have happened. There's the rich girl who's the plane, it's her dad's private plane. He's, like, a big, like, I want to say he does, like, it's like, he has, like, some type of chemical company or something, and a lot of, like, factories. So he's got a lot of money. There's the new kid in the group that is the poor kid that's going to a private school who, like, hit it off with the girls, and they invited him on the trip, and so he kind of feels out of place a little bit. There's the best friend who is just kind of like, what is going on here? And then there's also the other kid that's in love with one of the other kids, because there's always a little bit of star-crossed romance, whether or not you've dealt with it or whatnot. And so there's the bodyguard, too, that goes along with them, and things go wild. One of them, the lead girl, gets poisoned. And so, like, who poisoned her? Like, what is going on? Is it the bodyguard? Is it the replacement pilot that suddenly is here? Like, why is there a replacement pilot? Yeah, the cockpit, they're locked out of it. There's a gun in play. Like, there's all of this stuff. And then to make it even worse, will they actually be able to land the plane? Because the plane, of course, goes off course. So this one, I think I read it in, like, an afternoon, because it's very fast and it's short, and it's just really good. Especially if you have a reluctant reader, this one it just keeps going, and you're just like, will they actually make it? I'm not going to tell you. You have to read the book.
I like the cover. It's a good cover.
It is a good cover.
Alright, my next one is perfect for you Clue board game fans. It's called In the Hall of the Knife. This is actually a Clue mystery. It is the first in a trilogy. The second book, I believe, comes out later this year or next year.
Publishing, how does that work in a pandemic?
Everything gets pushed back. So there is a school in Maine. It's, I believe, a private school, so a lot of wealthy students go there. There is a crazy ice snowstorm, because Maine, and the people who didn't leave, I think, there's a bunch of kids that are stranded, and they all kind of try to come together in this one building, and of course somebody's murdered, and everyone sort of maybe has a reason to murder the principal, and so you kind of uncover that, and all the different reasons, and all of them have trust issues, because all of them could be the murderer. So the murder in this book does get solved in this book, but there's obviously a cliffhanger for book 2.
Okay. My last book is a graphic novel. It is a Batman story. It is called The Black Mirror. This is a different Batman story than others. And what I love about Batman is you always get a mystery, right? But it could be horror, it could be thriller, it could just be straight up like noir, like The Long Halloween. This one is different because it is very much a thriller. It moves very, very quickly. And I wouldn't say a lot of Batman stories always move this quickly. Also, this isn't Bruce Wayne as Batman. This is when Bruce Wayne went off and did some stuff. So Dick Grayson is Batman. And I actually like Dick as Batman because he's not good at being Batman, which is great. Because often Batman's too good at being Batman, and that's really not fun to read. So Dick and his Robin is Bruce's son, Damian, and they're paired up together. And Cassandra Cain is Batgirl is in this one too, I believe. And Barbara Gordon, who is Oracle. This happens before 52, so Batgirl, Barbara Gordon, is not actually out of the wheelchair yet. She's still paralyzed. And that kind of comes into play in the story, because somebody has been killing people, of course, and Dick is trying to figure out what is going on. Meanwhile, Barbara Gordon has a little brother, James Jr., and James Jr. is not quite the son Commissioner Gordon wanted, or the brother that Barbara wanted. It turns out James is unstable and possibly a sociopath and has some problems. And so Barbara doesn't trust him when he comes back, and he's just like, no, I've changed. And she's like, have you? And he's like, no, I've changed, I've gotten help. And she's like, okay. And so part of it is trying to figure out, is James the murderer that has suddenly started happening? And also, like, Barbara's been having all these weird things happen to her, and, like, there's this thing where James has always kind of had it out for her as well. And so there's a little bit of, like, flashing back to their history as kids and forward, and then Dick's trying to figure out the mystery, and Dick's not the greatest detective. Out of all of, like, the Bat family, probably Tim Drake is the better detective. And Tim's in it a little bit, but, so it's a good, different Batman story. And I really, really, really liked it. And, yeah, that's what I have. Scott Snyder wrote this one, too. And I like most of the stuff Scott Snyder's written. So,
cool. So I have 2 more. I'll go through these kind of quickly. Janet Evanovich and Lee Goldberg paired up to write The Heist. This is a great thriller series. It's kind of like Leverage and a little mixed with White Collar.
ooh.
Yeah, it's good. So Kate is an FBI agent. She's thrown in with Nick Fox, who is on, like, one of the most wanted lists. And she captures him, and they're like, well, he's not really going to go to jail. You're going to have to work with him and do a whole bunch of different kind of cons, sort of a lot of illegal heists and things to get other bad guys.
I'm here for that.
Yeah, so Nick is kind of the bait, and Kate is supposed to keep him reined in, which of course doesn't work.
Yeah, how do you rein in a con artist? They just con you out of whatever it is.
It's true.
And then you're locked in your hotel room going, what just happened?
It does happen. So there's a lot of fun secondary characters, like Kate's dad is great. The team that they put together is really fun, and they continue throughout the rest of the series, which is still ongoing. So yes, lots of fun. And then I have James Patterson's private series, which I also really like. These are like my plane books when I'm traveling. I love to read them on the plane because they're very, very quick. The chapters, of course, are James Patterson, so they're very short. Lots of things blow up. There's lots of danger. There's lots of murders. There's so Private is like this overall company that is worldwide, and they do like forensic stuff, and their technology is amazing, and the police are sometimes involved, but they're better at stuff sometimes than the police. It's sort of like the team from Bones, the TV show Bones. And, like, Angela has all like that tech, and she's always doing different things, and she's like, oh, I have this under patent and that under patent, and now I just whip this up. That's sort of what they're like a little bit with their technology. Anyways, they're just it's a fun, fast series, which I like them on a plane because I never notice how long the plane ride is because I'm just trying to finish the book as fast as I can.
That's cool. Did you know you should keep 47 James Patterson books apart at the library?
I did.
Because 47 James Patterson books is 6 feet of social distance.
And he has a fun PSA about masks. So.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Yes.
Okay, well, check it out. Alright, well, thank you for joining us this week. Tune in next week to find out what we'll talk about then.
Who knows?
Great.
Bye.